If you want to be a world traveler, start by... Oh, is that a Galaxy SA?
Hey, what's up, folks?
Handsome screen. Well, pack that. Oh, okay, we're moving
Put in
fast.
some work, but
You'll
also
need a tour guide. But apparently not.
listen,
Don't forget a big
just,
camera.
Research real quick.
Or that phone will work. Traveling by yourself can be lonely. And you've already made friends. Okay, I guess you have the world traveler thing covered.
Dang, man.
Hi, my name is Kerry Holzman, and I'm the co-host of Tech Vets. It's a free podcast that you can listen to. It's all about the trials and tribulations of running a computer repair business, including tales from the trenches and things that we've had.
Where was
I paid $12. So the sweet spot for now is definitely on dry land. And last but not least, the power supply, or in this case, the Corsair CX600. Maximum PC's normal advice for an enthusiast constructing a system is to think long term. Overbuild, because you don't know what parts your machine will end up with, and consider how hard your power supply is going to work on those sweltering days of summer. And if we were going to make a recommendation for someone using those guidelines, we'd say buy the Corsair TX750 V2 or the Thermaltake Smart 730. Now they're both about $100. They give you a nice long 5-year warranty and offer 4 6+2 connectors for future beefy GPU support. But remember, this video is about bang for the buck, and with today's sweet spot GPUs offering pretty fantastic power envelopes, the folks at Maximum PC Magazine were quite surprised by stepping down in power supply units to Corsair's $70 CX600 V2, which provides 600 watts and 2 6+2 GPU power connectors. This power supply has plenty of power to run a single GPU machine, which is what we're building. It'll do that with no problem, and even SLI if you keep the system properly cooled. But be aware, if you plan to vary from the sweet spot GPU, then the TX750 V2 is the recommended power supply you should be using. So here's our parts. You'll notice there's no keyboard, there's no mouse, there's no monitor, and there's no operating system. We're assuming you already have those things, and all these parts added up together came out to just under $1,200, and it's going to be the best performance of a gaming system that you can get for the money. So what are you waiting for? You ready to get started? Let's get building. All right, here we go. Bam! That's what I'm talking about. That's our case. The NZXT Phantom 410. Now I bet there's a lot of you guys who saw my sneak peek video who saw the box it came in that shows a white computer. You thought this was going to be white, didn't you? Well, guess what, guys? They don't put different color cases in different color boxes. The box, all the cases come in are the same. And the box just has a thing written on the top that tells you what color the case is on the inside, okay? It's not white. This is gun metal. Why do you think I picked that color? Because it's awesome. All right, anyway. Got a little case window. It's a gaming system, so that's okay. If it was a business system, you know I wouldn't put a window on it. It's a beautiful case. Look at this thing. We flip this bad boy up. Look at this. We got our headphone and microphone jack, USB 2, USB 3. This looks like a fan controller here to increase, decrease the fan speed. You got your power button, reset button, all right up on the front.
Hi.
Case door, which is irrelevant because we're not using any optical drive or nothing.
Oh, we
How
got
do you
dogs.
put your operating system on it?
Stop
I'll show you how later. What do you think? Is that bad or what? I really like it. I might like it so much I might not want to sell it. This is really cool. And it comes apart real easy. We have 2 screws right here.
Yeah, it does. I know that.
You might need to get a screwdriver, depending on how tight they are, to get these screws out.
Yeah.
We can set these screws aside. These will be the last screws we basically need to put in, because when we're done, we'll put this panel back on. This panel.
This goes here.
Yeah, if you're looking at the computer from the back, it's the right side panel. Just pull that off. We need to put this away because we don't want it to fall down, and we don't want to scratch the nice plexiglass there. So let me go put this away. Be right back. While I was gone, I came back with the power supply because that'll be the first and easiest part to put in.
It is,
Right
actually.
down here is where your power supply is going to go on this case. Now, I'm not a big fan of putting a power supply on the bottom. And I'll tell you why. Heat rises.
Okay.
And, well, this case has plenty of fans. As you can see, there's a fan up here, there's a fan here.
Yeah.
We have lots of room for cabling back behind the motherboard tray. Lots of room for drives. This is probably a box full of parts. Yeah, there's our box full of parts that got these nice removable hard drive trays. And actually, on this case, we're going to need to take the other panel off too. I'm just seeing a lot of stuff has to get access from the other side. But just so you see what comes with the case, got some instructions there. There's all the screws you're going to need right there.
Okay.
And there's some zip ties. That's pretty cool. They give you some zip ties. All right, let's get rid of that. Anyway, what I was saying was I don't like power supplies on the bottom because you think about your CPU is going to be here in the middle. Your hard drive is going to be over here, or possibly down here. And the heat from the power supply is going to rise up. And it's going to rise up over the video card. Your video card is going to be right in here. And it's going to rise up in the CPU. It's just going to get hotter and hotter right in the middle.
Okay.
So if the power supply are on top, as that heat rises, the power supply has a fan to blow it out. So ideally, the airflow comes in the bottom, and it kind of moves up like through the middle like this on an angle, and then goes out the top through the power supply on most computer cases. Now, that's not to say that this case is going to run hot. Quite the opposite. This case was engineered specifically for the airflow to move in a way that the situation that I've just said won't cause a problem. Now, how the engineers figure this out, I don't know, but I assure you they do. And it's just a different design. Ultimately, it doesn't make much of a difference. It's a bit of an old school approach that I have about having a power supply on top. It's not going to hurt to have power supply on the bottom on a case that's been designed for that. But it's just an observation on my part. And normally, like I said, on a regular business build, there are other reasons not to have the power supply down on the bottom on a business build. You really want it to be really easy to work on, and the power supply on the bottom just adds to the cable clutter down towards the bottom when you're already going to have your motherboard umbilicals and everything down there. Anyway, it is what it is. Some people really like it down here. There is the style of it, you know, the way it looks, the aesthetics of it definitely looks cool, that's for sure. To put a power supply in, I got my electric screwdriver and my knife. I need a knife to open the box. I'm going to go ahead and pull the other side panel off of this case. Flip this around this way so you can see what I'm doing.
It'll work with me.
There's two screws. One screw right there. One screw right there. If you're wondering about the screwdriver, this is covered in my screwdrivers video, which I'll put a link to in the video notes below. If you haven't seen it yet, you might want to check it out. This is a screwdriver I used to use way back in the early 90s. They still make it today. That's how good it is. It's exactly the same as it was. They haven't changed a thing on it. I guess when you make it right the first time, you don't have to go back and redesign it. Alright, I got this other panel off. Let me go put this other panel away. Again, I don't want it to fall down somewhere and get scratched up. It's a nice, pretty panel. Alright, let's go ahead and get some things out of the way here, right? Let's just set all this aside, put all the screws together, put all this off to the side. Let's get a nice open area to work on. Right now, we're not dealing with anything where we got to worry about static electricity, so we're not even going to talk about that right now. Just going to get this case opened up, or let's get this power supply opened up. Okay, here's what you get in the box with your power supply. There's your warranty guide, there's your instructions, there's your power cable.
Just tossing these giants out.
There's more zip ties, and there's some screws. That's good, we'll keep that. There's some silica gel.
Ah, come on.
No, you're not supposed to eat this. Don't eat this. Do not eat this. No.
You strange.
Right. And then there's a power
kind of
supply,
strange,
that's an
but...
empty box. All right, so that's what you get. Then you got your bubble wrap here.
Alright, I think that's what it is.
Everything's
Somewhere
got to be
here.
wrapped up. Right? When you look at the power supply, you see it's got 4 holes for screws and one is offset. Let's get you a nice close-up here. You'll see there's a place for a screw in each corner, except right here if this one is offset.
Okay.
Now, on many cases, that means this power supply will only go in one way. However, on this case, if you spin it around, there's an offset screw here and an offset screw here. That means we can put this power supply in either way. Doesn't mean we should. There is actually a proper way this power supply, a proper direction rather, that this power supply should go in. Now instinctively I would think that the fan that's on the bottom, you'd want this fan to blow down and out of the case, down through here. But the instructions that came with this case specifically show the power supply going in with the fan facing up. So if you look at this diagram right here, it shows that they want the fan on the bottom of the power supply facing up. Actually, I just noticed something on this power supply. There's a little sticker here. It's covered up. And you might get parts that are covered in this plastic, and some people like to keep the plastic on, but the plastic's not really meant to be left on. It's just there for protection and shipping. And you can peel this off, and it'll look a lot better when you do. See how much better that looks? And then that you can just throw away. Okay, so let's show you how to get this thing installed. Turn the case around so you can see. We want the fan, as I've already explained and justified, in the up position on this case. These are your umbilicals for the fans and LEDs and switches. We're just going to push those out of the way for right now. And we're just going to line that up. Just kind of set it in there until it looks about right. Like so. And then we'll turn it around this way, and you want to make sure all the holes are going to line up about like that. We're going to take the screws that came with this power supply. You don't have to use these screws, but might as well. And we just want to get the screws started. We don't want to tighten them down. So by leaving these screws loose, I was able to push down on this power supply and push it this way to get the screws started. Now that they're all in, now we can tighten them down. This screwdriver has a clutch on it that's going to keep me from over tightening. You'll hear that clutch kick in. Just like that, our power supply is in. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. One of the first things I think you're going to notice that makes this video different from my previous videos, there's just going to be a lot of transitions and a little bit less detail than my previous videos. My previous videos I wanted as few cuts as possible to show the viewer every step involved and that there wasn't any magic or secrets done in between cuts. Okay, but to speed this video along, you're going to see a lot of transitions, and we'll just try it and see how it works. I hope you guys will like it. It'll make for the video to be much tighter, much shorter. So that said, the next part of this
3 hours is shorter?
the motherboard ready.
Bruh.
So we're going to need the motherboard, we need the RAM, we're going to need the CPU, and we need the cooler. Alright, those are the 4 parts we need to get this ready. Now, this is where static gets involved. This is an anti-static strap. This is the way it works. You're supposed to put this on your wrist. Like this. And then you're supposed to take this little metal alligator clip on the other end and put it to something metal, preferably not painted. Some bare metal would be better. But whatever you put this alligator clip to needs to be metal, and it needs to not be plugged in. Alright, you don't want to have an earth ground. We've been through this before. Earth grounds are bad. All you're trying to do is put yourself on the same electrical level as all the devices. Earth grounds can electrify and kill you if power were to be turned on, if you were to get electrocuted. Now, my opinion is, in my experiences, this is not necessary. Anti-static straps, if you follow the way I'm going to build the system, and you follow the steps that I do, you won't need this. However, they're not that expensive, and if you'll feel more comfortable wearing one, then you just go right ahead and you wear one, okay? That's fine. And static problems aren't like what they used to be. You know, back in the day, motherboards were this big and had 100 different components on them. But through the miracle of technology, a lot of those components have all been put down into a chip now that's, super tiny. So a motherboard today has much fewer components on it. So that means it's less static sensitive than, let's say, a motherboard of a few years ago or 10 years ago. Also, the parts, when they're mounted into the circuit board, are less susceptible to static than the raw parts at the factory that are sitting in bins. They're much more susceptible to static. Now that's not to say you don't have to worry about static, but it is to say that the rules of static and anti-static have changed a bit, and in that how the technology has changed. There's fewer parts to static shock, and static isn't this mystery that it once was, this sort of invisible death of parts, you know, that come creeping down and ruin your parts. So you'll see I'm working in the kitchen. I work on a tile floor. Do not build your computer on carpet. If every room in your house is carpeted, go outside. You'd be better off standing on grass or dirt or gravel or cement than standing on carpet. That's rule number one. Rule number two, try not to, you know, if you're one of these people that's always itching, try to avoid itching, all right, because that builds static. Keep the case handy and keep touching the case at all times. This will keep grounding you out. This case is not plugged in, it's just a metal case, all right? And all you have to do is touch it. Just make a habit out of touching it every so often, and that'll make sure it discharges any static that's built up. You'll see me do this, and you'll also see that I handle the parts in a way that, you know, even if I did have static on me, I'm not touching any of the components. I'm going to handle all of the components, or handle all of the parts by the edges. All right, so that also eliminates any possibility of static discharge. So, disclaimers out of the way. Let's get started.
All right.
We'll take our motherboard out of the box. What comes with the motherboard? Instructions. In this case, lots of instructions. This is your SLI connector if you want to hook two video cards together. We're not going to do that, so you want to keep this, so if you want to do that in the future, you'll have it. SATA cables for the hard drive. More SATA cables for the hard drive. This is your I/O shield. This is real easy to install. Actually, we'll get this out of the way in just a minute. Then there's like this little cardboard. You lift that up. And inside, the last piece left is the motherboard. Now, let's close this up. And let's talk a little bit about this anti-static bag. Here is our motherboard. You'll see the way I'm handling it. You see I'm holding it by the edges, okay? That's pretty important. It may not always be possible to handle this board by the edges, but when it is possible, that's how you should handle it.
Okay,
now,
by the edges.
Let's get to the fun part, shall we? A lot of you are under the false belief that you should not put the motherboard on this anti-static bag. A lot of you are under the false belief that the outside of the bag is somehow made out of a different material than the inside of the bag. A lot of you don't understand how an anti-static bag works. The only way an anti-static bag works is for something to be inside of the bag. That's the only way a static bag works, okay? It creates something called a Faraday cage.
Oh, no.
Once you remove the item from the bag, it's not in the cage anymore. This bag is non-conductive material. You can put a multimeter on this, and I have, and it will read infinite resistance. Put the same multimeter on your finger, and you'll get like 500 ohms of resistance off your finger. Your fingers are more conductive than this bag is, all right? Now, there's this old thing going around. Everybody says, don't put the bag, don't put on the bag. Look at my anti-static Mythbuster video, and you'll see that I turn a motherboard on the anti-static bag, and if this bag were conductive, the whole board would have smoked. So there's always a ton of comments about me putting this on the anti-static bag. And there's a reason why I put on the anti-static bag. I don't want to scratch my counter. Okay?
Nah.
Now, I have nothing
I
to
don't
gain
want
or
to scratch
lose
my counter.
if you believe me or you don't believe me.
You're funny.
I have nothing to gain or lose if you put your motherboard on the anti-static bag or you don't. All I'm interested in is giving you the facts and trying to squash all the old, outdated information that people are constantly perpetuating, and you can check it yourself. You can verify what I'm saying. Just get a multimeter and check it. Let's not confuse anti-static with conductivity, all right? You don't want to put this on a conductive surface. In other words, we don't want to put this on a metal tray. We don't want to put it on anything that can conduct electricity. This bag won't conduct electricity, and it protects my countertop. I've been building computers. How many times, have I said this? For a long time. Never once has this ever caused any problem. I wouldn't be doing it, and I wouldn't be recommending it. Now, if you're uncomfortable with it, that's fine. Another way is you can just put the motherboard box as your little table, and that'll work just as well to protect the tabletop from being scratched, because the bottom of this board has a lot of very sharp points. I don't want to touch them, because that's how you can static shock the components, is by touching these points down here. That's also a nice way to cut yourself, because they are really sharp and they will scratch whatever surface you put it on until you get it mounted properly into the case. All right, so that said, I'm doing it my way, all right, which as far as I'm concerned is the right way, and I'm using the bag, and I'm going to use the box too. So I just get a little upset about people who have no actual education in electronics leaving comments telling me I'm wrong. And as you can tell, I get a little passionate about that. I get a little emotional about it. And don't be dissuaded by those people. And you don't even have to believe me. Test it yourself. All right? Let's not confuse anti-static with conductivity. And I can't stress that enough. The only way this board stays anti-static is inside this bag. Once you take that motherboard out of the bag, it's open to any static that's in the air. I live in the desert. It's got a very dry air, very low humidity, so it's more prone to having static in the air. All right, and I'm more prone to carrying a charge. So again, just keep touching the case, touch the metal of the case, not the plastic, but the metal. That'll keep grounding you out. It'll keep you on the same electrical level as your atmosphere, the room that you're in. It's very important. Now, let me get off my soapbox and let's continue with the build. As I mentioned, we've got this I/O shield. This I/O shield comes with every motherboard, and on the back of our case, we've got a hole cut out right here. This is a unit.
Nice. Cutting that short real quick.